One of my interests in the world, as Mahdi Shaheeb Sher, is President Putin of Russia. I think President Putin was elected maybe back in 1992, I'm not sure, but he was elected by President George W. Bush. By George W. Bush. I think he put President Putin in power following Yeltsin. And I think that this is quite significant because it shows that the reason the Russian Federation is called the Russian Federation is because of the American Federation and George W. Bush. So I think it's American, that's why it's called a federation. So I think that is obviously very, very concerning, because Russia should be Russia, not an American federation, but it seems to sound like an American federation. So that's concerning. But I think that with President Vladimir Putin, is that I think he does have some kind of psychological issue. I think his mother is Hillary Clinton or something, and she also has a psychological condition. And I think that President Putin also has a similar psychological condition to Hillary Clinton. So I think he does have some kind of a mental condition and a psychological condition. And I think this makes him unreliable and maybe reckless. But I think that I have disfavourable opinions about President Putin. I think he's very dangerous for the world because I think he takes too many risks. I think he takes risks all the time. I think he is dangerous for the world, and I think that he's been in power for a very long time, over 30 years. So he's been in power for a long time, and if you see what Russia has to show for President Putin's presidency and power in government, it has absolutely nothing to show for it. So I think that's the legacy of President Putin, the fact that despite all of his claims of strength and vision, despite all of his hard work and his authority in government for 3 decades, Russia has absolutely nothing to show for it. Because if you look at how Russia was before President Putin, when perhaps Yeltsin was in power, it was in a reasonably full flavour condition, with a Russian condition, and it could be in a condition of reasonable health. But I think if you look at how Russia is under following Vladimir Putin, President Putin, you can see its economy has disappeared, its housing and infrastructure has disappeared, its food has disappeared, it has food insecurity. I think most Russian people have a poor diet because they're not able to buy food as perhaps other people do in other countries. So I think the conditions of Russia are quite deprived, poor, and maybe harsh as well. And this is very tragic because the Soviet Union conquered the world twice over. It dominated the world with its armies and politics and its power around the world. It defeated America. It brought America to its knees. But I think if you look at how the Soviet Union is following its collapse, it's in a very poor, deprived state. And I think that's largely part not just to Gorbachev, who had to hand all that power to Yeltsin and Putin. I think that if you look at how that Soviet Union has collapsed with Gorbachev, Yeltsin and Putin, you can see it has collapsed in a very poor, deprived and quite a shocking and humiliating way that perhaps people can't understand. So I think that Russia does need to be looked at, because it seems to be in a state of quite shocking and unbelievable disrepair, decay and deprivation and poverty, and I think that shows how America has perhaps defeated the Soviet Union. It shows how it's kind of the level and extent of the Soviet Union collapse, and the level and extent to how America has forced Russia and the Soviet Union to its knees. And I think it looks something like how I've just described it, in a very poor and deprived way. So I think that collapse is a very big collapse, and I think America is very, very powerful for it now. But I think that one of the other tragedies is President Putin, in how he promised the world with confidence that he had the talent, the physical strength and the courage, and also the political expertise to deal with all of Russia's challenges, not just a few of them, with all of them. He said it's not a problem. He said he could deal with all of them. And if you look at how Russia is today, he's dealt with none of them. We seem to have more problems because of President Putin. There's no economy at all. We just have oligarchs that replaced the economy that we had with Yeltsin. So we don't seem to have any Russian economy now. It's just oligarchs and maybe Russian billionaires who act like American billionaires. So there's no economy, and I think that militarily, although Russia is militarily very powerful, I think it's unlikely to be able to deal with Americans' challenge as a military. So I think that's the most important question with this military. Russia is very proud that it has a strong military, but I don't think it can deal with the challenge of America's military, and that's the final argument to Russia's claim of having a strong military. So I think that's another important view. I think that Russia is still a superpower in the world, and that's very hopeful for the future. But I think that for Russia to be in a state of deprivation and poverty that it is, and to have a lot of further problems such as Russian isolation from the world, perhaps bad relations with America, and perhaps Europe and other relations around the world. It's a very isolationist now, so that causes a lot of problems. I think there's employment issues and jobs, and economic conditions and GDP growth, an issue as that. I think Russia can always rely on its natural resources and raw wealth, as it always does in history. So it can survive with its population, but I think it does have resources to draw on, but it's still concerning how many problems Russia does have. The degree to the level of problems that Russia does have, that's still concerning. I think it seems to the degree to the problems that Russians have. I think that I think that President Putin has perhaps with his psychological instability, I think President Putin has perhaps done some damage to Russia, and I think unfortunately we see a sad Russia. Thank you very much. Thank you.